How's it going out there, YouTube? My name is Jesse and I'm back for another comic book video. I've done the Golden Age Heroes of Canada and I've done the Golden Age Heroes of Australia. Now it's time to do the Golden Age Heroes of Britain. Now, I was going to play the British National Anthem, but I don't need to pad the runtime this time. No, it's interesting. The National Anthem for Britain, which actually covers Great Britain, the United Kingdom, and Northern Ireland, interestingly enough, is called God Save the Queen. If you have a chance, you should give it a listen, because America the Beautiful uses the exact same musical score for that song. Yes, we ripped off God Save the Queen for the United States' first national anthem, which was America the Beautiful. Later, we would change the national anthem to the Star Spangled Banner, which is also a ripoff of another Britain song, a slightly less well-known one, to Archon in Heaven, or Arcanon in Heaven. I tried those things, but I couldn't get it quite right. But yes, both of the national anthems, American the Beautiful and the Star Spangled Banner, were both rip-off of musical composition that came out of Britain. Now, I'm going to go ahead and cover 3 heroes today, one from the 30s, one from the 40s, and one from the 50s. The one in the 50s is close enough to the timeline of the Golden Age to be considered a Golden Age. Also, the one from the 50s was a request, so I will briefly cover him in this review, and then I can go into more of an in-depth review since it was a request later on. Just keep in mind, if there's any more of these heroes that you'd like me to expand on after I've finished with this month's list, I can get into greater details on them. There's already a Canadian superhero that I've gotten some requests to go into greater detail on. So that's just one for the list. So let's go ahead and cover these 3 Golden Age Britain superheroes. First on this list, Nighthawk. Nighthawk, Thurston Kyle, first appeared in Nelson Lee Liberty number 11 in 1930. He has no superpowered. He is a scientist and a crime fighter. He wears a suit of armor equipped with wings that enables him to fly. He uses pistols to shoot targets on the ground while he is flying. He is also an excellent hand-to-hand fighter. He would appear in a number of issues of Nelson Lee Library, and he would have his partner Sparrowhawk. Now, Sparrowhawk also did appear in Nelson Lee Liberty number 11, but he wouldn't get a set of wings of his own until a couple of issues later. Thurston Kyle's father was murdered by the Benton Gang. It was one of Britain's greatest criminal band. He would spend several years slowly dismantling the band and seeking his revenge. He would follow Benton and push him to the point where he was able to get him to the Swiss mountains, where upon disembarking the plane, he had a suit of armor, he would take the leader of the Benton Gang to the very top of the Swiss mountains and then take off the wings, letting him know that this would be a fair fight and only one of them would leave there alive. Thurston Kyle was able to beat the leader of the Benton Gang despite him pulling out a knife, and he would toss him off the top of the mountains and finally get revenge for his father. Nighthawk, Thurston Kyle, would eventually target other criminals such as gangs in America. He would ally himself with a number of different people in the pursuit of taking out criminals. He would appear as a backup feature in Nelson Lee Library and would appear in a number of issues. he would also appear in a serial called The Phantom Foe, which ran from issue 69 to number 83. Now, a serial is a collection of stories that run over a period of time. Normally, these are considered like films or short stories, but this was a serial which appeared back in 1931. Now, this was actually interesting that this story would run for so many issues, because this wasn't the thing that was done back then. A lot of stories were self-contained into a single issue, or they might go for a couple of issues, 2, maybe even as long as 3. But to go from issues number 98 to 83, a long, continuously story that went for this far was unheard of back then, which would actually be a standard thing now if you read Marvel or DC. He would have some of his stories reprinted in the Boys Friend library, and these would just be some reprinted stories of his own. They would release 4 new Nighthawk stories in 2014. Coming in next on this list, Ace Hart. Ace Hart, who is apparently named Ace Hart, first appeared in Super Thriller number 6 in 1948. He is a scientist and adventurer. He is a normal human, and he gave himself superpowers. He would later team up with a woman named Val Venture, who would also share the same powers as Ace Hart. There are many issues of Super Thriller where he was also known as Ace Hart, the Atom Man. He is super strong. Apparently no elaboration on that. He can fly faster than a jet. Apparently, he is fast enough that he can cover 100 miles in a couple of minutes. He can fly through interstellar space and survive the pressure and the cold of being in outer space. He can fly from the Earth to the moon in minutes. He is invulnerable, and not only do bullets not affect him, energy rays from alien pistols do not affect him either. That is what it says. He can emit atomic heat rays from his eyes that are hot enough that it can bend metal or melt metal. He has the ability to hypnotize his clone, and sometimes he likes to switch it up and use an atomic ray gun that he invented himself. There is an elaboration on his strength. His super strength makes him as strong as 20 men. He invented an elixir that allows him to safely absorb and utilize atomic energy. Ace Hart also invented a device that allowed him to know when people were in danger so he could race to their rescue. Before he partnered himself with Val Venture, he partnered himself with someone named Jesse King. Jesse King, not specified if it's a man or a woman, but since it's spelled Jessie, I would assume it was a woman, also gained the same powers as Ace from drinking the elixir that he invented. Later, he would work for the Department of Space Defense under the Director General, and that is when he would partner up with Val Venture. His main enemy would be Zoanda, which was Satan's daughter. He would appear in a number of issues of Super Thriller comics. Next on this list, Marvel Man. Marvel Man, Mike Moran, first appeared in Marvel Man number 25 in 1954 and would appear all the way up to issue 370. Now, Marvel Man was also known as Miracle Man. He would actually be called Miracle Man when they reprinted his comics in America in the 1980s. And they probably did that because they didn't want to mix him up with anybody else with the name of Marvel in their name. He would sometimes be partnered up with Young Marvel Man and Kid Marvel Man. Now, considering the number of people with the name Marvel in the 50s, I can see why they would want to change his name to Miracle Man. Now, this is someone who I would love to go into greater details on later because he has a large history. Do my normal Golden Age review. He has incredible strength, the ability to lift hundreds of tons. He is super fast and can go around the speed of Mach 3. He is invulnerable and able to survive in space without being affected by the vacuum of space. He is exceptionally intelligent, far beyond that of a normal human, and he's able to cause thunderclaps by clasping his hands together. That Hulk can do that too. Apparently he was a normal human and he was transformed by magic. Magical transformation. That's one I don't think that I've covered for the foreign country Golden Age heroes yet. Now, it says that he was transformed by magic, but as I'm reading his history, it just appears to be science. A reclusive astrophysicist, or scientist, discovers that there is a key word to the universe. I don't know. That's what it says. He finds a good person, which is a newspaper copy boy named Mickey Moran. He exposes him to this machine, which gives him the special energy that allows him to transform himself when he utters the word. I'm looking at it, it looks like Kimota. The scientist was critically injured and was able to tell Mickey the key word before he died. And then he was able to transform himself into Marvel Man, which in the 80s he would go by Miracle Man, so they wouldn't have any problems with Marvel when he started getting his comics printed in the US. His comic ran for 146 issues with 9 annuals, and it looks like he may have had his own self-titled comic back then. Now, if you think that Miracle Man's transformation sounds familiar, this was actually done on purpose. They did this exactly for this reason. Originally, DC sued Fawcett Comics for Captain Marvel being too similar to Superman, which I've covered in my Fawcett Comics video. So the British company was doing reprints of the Captain Marvel comic that came out in Fawcett Comics, and the company that was printing these comics, L. Miller and Son, actually got the artist Mike Angelo to create a new character that was just like Captain Marvel, and thus Marvel Man was born. So this was actually done on purpose, and I guess since it was done in Britain, either they didn't know about it, of course in 1954 the imports would have been lifted by then, or the copyright laws couldn't extend across the border, or couldn't extend overseas to England, which is probably more likely. But when it eventually came to America, they would have to change to risk being sued by DC or by Marvel. So he would become Miracle Man afterwards. One of the main reasons that I would love to go into a longer review on Miracle Man is because he had stories written by Alan Moore, Neil Gaiman, and apparently Grant Morrison even came up with a Lost story. So this is definitely a hero that I would love to go into further review in the future, and most definitely will. And if you agree, you can leave some comments in the comment section. I hope you enjoyed that video. I hope that you like what I'm doing here, and I'm going to be coming up with more heroes. Now, I did do a DNA test quite a while ago and found out that I am in large part British myself, which was a shock to me because I didn't realize that my origins went that far back. So, until next time, God save the Queen.